What's up, guys? So today we're going to talk about earthquakes and tsunamis, some of the other big culprits for changes on our Earth's surface. Let's get into it. So what is an earthquake? Well, it's a sudden and violent shaking of the ground. Sometimes it can cause big destruction, sometimes not so much, but it's almost always a result of movements within the Earth's crust or volcanic action. So either plate boundaries, and plates are moving and bumping into each other or rubbing against each other, and that's movement of the Earth's crust, or sometimes magma is moving. And as a result of that, we can experience an earthquake as well as that magma moves underground. There are three types of earthquakes. Check out this cool GIF of a pool during an earthquake. It's a little intense. But there are tectonic earthquakes, volcanic earthquakes, and what are called explosion earthquakes. Now, these are all types that you need to know. So let's make sure you learn well about them. Of these three types of earthquakes, tectonic earthquakes are the most common. So tectonic earthquakes happen all over the world. They happen every single day. They are the most common. They occur when plates get caught on one another. So usually transform boundaries as pressure builds up and as they're pushing past each other or rubbing past each other, the plates will get caught on one another, and that causes an earthquake. So usually they can move along next to each other smoothly, and we don't even notice it or feel it. But if there's some kind of a hang-up on an outcropping of rock or on a sharp edge, there will be a pressure buildup. And when that pressure cuts loose and that boundary pushes past that pressure buildup, we'll experience a big release of energy or an earthquake. And all the parts of the plates that are caught up will break, and it will cause energy waves to move through the ground, which causes those earthquakes. So it's kind of like an ocean wave, but it's an energy wave, and it causes the earth around it to wave like an ocean wave, and that's what an earthquake is. And it's a tectonic earthquake, so the most common, most frequent. Volcanic earthquakes occur when we see magma flowing underneath the ground, and this causes pressure changes and cracks and fissures to happen around that flow of magma. And as those cracks and pressure changes happen, it causes shaking and movement in the ground above that we can feel. And that's called a volcanic quake. And it's just from the movement of magma underground and the disturbances of the rock layers in that area. And then finally, explosion earthquakes are usually man-made. These are the least common. This is when there's some sort of explosion either above ground or underneath the ground. We've detonated atomic bombs both above ground and underneath ground. Those cause explosion earthquakes. Sometimes chemical line bursts, gas line bursts will cause earthquakes as well. Those are usually very localized and in the immediate area, and they're not usually felt in big areas around them. And they don't cause a lot of destruction in terms of the earthquake. The explosion itself can cause a lot of destruction, but the earthquake itself is generally not widespread enough or powerful enough to cause damage to people's homes and things like that. So if you're not caught up in the explosion, you're probably safe. Let's talk about tsunamis. Tsunamis are large waves. These are high, long sea waves that travel a big distance and are caused by either an earthquake, some sort of landslide underneath the water, or a submarine landslide, which is just a landslide underneath the water, or some other kind of disturbance that's upset the water and caused it to travel. And as that water travels, it travels in waves, and those waves can get quite big and they can be pretty destructive. There are three types of tsunamis. There are local tsunamis, which originate in an area and also create a wave in that same area. So it's all very localized and very close. The cause is close to the destruction. Regional tsunamis, which can happen in a region, maybe within a few hundred miles, and create destruction in that zone of a few hundred miles. And then distant tsunamis, which are caused in a location far, far away, and it may take several hours for the tsunami to travel and actually hit the shores. And we'll talk about all three types. So local tsunamis can cause damage up to 100 kilometers from the source of the tsunami. So as long as the tsunami has begun within 100 miles of the area that the wave breaks, it's considered a local tsunami. So this travel time from the time the tsunami is generated to the time it crashes onto the ocean, not onto the ocean, onto the beach, is usually less than 1 hour. These can be the most destructive, and they can be very dangerous. People die in these types of tsunamis because the waves are usually very high. There's a lot of energy in them, and there can be a lot of destruction. Regional tsunamis are tsunamis that can originate from 100 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers from the source. So that means that if the tsunami happens out in the ocean and then it travels 800 miles and hits the beach, it's considered a regional tsunami. It can take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours before the wave crashes on the beach and causes destruction. Regional tsunamis can be destructive, but they're generally not as bad as local tsunamis. However, they have been known to kill people and create a lot of destruction. Finally, distant tsunamis can also be called ocean-wide tsunamis, teletsunamis, distant source tsunamis, far-field tsunamis, or transocean tsunamis. These happen because the origination of the wave is a distant source. Anything over 1,000 kilometers or 620 miles away. So if there's an earthquake in India and the wave travels all the way to Hawaii, that would be considered a distant tsunami. Hawaii is very far away from India. That wave would have to travel for a very long time in order to reach Hawaii. Sometimes they can travel across an entire ocean, but usually the travel is 3 or more hours before it hits the beach. These tsunamis tend to be the least destructive because a lot of the energy has dissipated in the water and in the ocean before it ever hits the beach. So these are the least destructive or the least scary tsunamis. And that is our discussion of tsunamis. Hopefully you checked tsunamis out while you were looking up the web quest and you got to see some super cool videos. Get to turn in your guided notes. Have a great day.